Okay, it is now 1 o'clock, and this is the Monday, April 1st, 2019 meeting of the Architectural Advisory Committee. Please silence all cell phones and pagers. Planning Director, roll call, please.
Member Dosey.
Present.
Member Lockyer.
Present.
Member McCoy.
Present.
Member Paline.
Present.
Member Walsh.
Here.
Vice Chair Rotman.
Present.
Chair Jakeway.
Present.
We have a quorum.
May we have a staff report on the posting of the agenda, please?
Mr. Chair, the agenda was posted on Thursday, March 28th. This meeting has been noticed and posted in accordance with state law.
Does anybody on the committee have any revisions to the agenda? Seeing none, do we have a motion to accept the agenda?
Motion to accept.
Second?
Second.
Second from Sean. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Since this is a public meeting, audience members are permitted to comment on any issue that's within this committee's purview. Comments on an item appearing on today's agenda are made at the time the item is presented. If you want to speak on an item not on today's agenda, you may speak now. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. And seeing none, I think we can move ahead to the agenda. First is the minutes from our last meeting. Do we have any change to the minutes?
One small change on, let's see, is that the, I'm sorry. Never mind.
Okay.
I got it wrong.
No changes? Do we have a motion to accept?
Motion to accept.
Second?
Second.
Abstain.
One abstention from Sean. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? Okay. We're now going to go to unfinished business. The Cole Hotel Lodge LLC for a minor architectural application to renovate an existing hotel, including improvements to the building's facades, an addition of 528 square feet, and the construction of a new parking lot located at 2323 North Palm Canyon Drive. Staff report.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, I'm filling in today for Mr. David Newell. David and his wife just welcomed a brand new baby girl, so he's going to be out of the office for a while. And so again, I will, so I'll go ahead and offer the report for him. As you'll recall, you saw this application back on March the 4th. At that time, there were a number of comments made by the AAC relative to changes you would like to see. What I'd like to do is go through the changes that have been made to the project. Number one, relative to the use of paving materials. In the previous proposal, they were proposing to use pavers in the new parking lot on the north side of the property. The comment from the AAC was to use the pavers in the entry driveway and then in the bay parking on the south side of the hotel. And so, as you can see from the plans, the applicant has made those changes as requested by the AAC. Secondly, one of the issues was the photometric plan in that we didn't have detailed information about the light fixtures. The applicant has submitted the photometric plan. While staff will review the actual foot candles in the plan that's shown here, at a later point in time, one of the concerns that we do have is with one of the proposed fixtures, the fixture that will be used in the parking lot, identified here in the image as Cyclone Trica, if I'm saying that correctly. Our concern is that it may not have a full cutoff luminaire, and so that's one of the things that we've included as a condition of approval, that it does need to meet our dark sky requirements. And so they have provided that information, and we've just requested that one change. In terms of the windows and the colors, the applicant had indicated last time that they were using vinyl windows for some of the windows and then retaining the existing windows, I believe, on the lobby area up at the front of the building. And there was a concern from the AAC that the white vinyl of the windows would not go well with the color scheme that they had selected. And so the applicant has proposed a revised color scheme shown in these images here, which would go better with the white vinyl windows and the existing windows. The applicant also has a board here with those proposed colors, and I'd ask the applicant to go through the color scheme with you. They did not have time to make revisions to the 3D renderings that you see in your packet, so those are the previous colors. And so I would ask, as a condition of approval, that the applicant provide us with elevations showing the different colors and where they'll be used on the building. Also, relative to the windows, one of the comments that the AAC made was relative to the windows on the alley on the ground floor rooms. Those were much larger windows before, I believe about 4 to 5 feet in height. They are now reducing those on the first floor level to a slim horizontal window. And so that will address some of the concerns relative to privacy from the alley, and then also the exposure on the western facade. Another comment was relative to the landscape buffer at the front of the property on North Palm Canyon. The depth, the minimum depth of that landscape buffer has been increased to a minimum of 2 feet, as you can see there on the plans. We have added a condition of approval that a minimum depth of 2 feet is required for all landscape buffers, so they have adequate room for planting materials in those areas. Another comment was relative to the alley in terms of it being a little bit harsh and needed to be softened. The applicant has worked with our engineering services division to look at alternatives, and what they are proposing is to do cutouts in the edge of the alley that will allow them to plant vines and then to use metal screens to allow those vines to attach to the side of the building. What they're proposing here is to use bougainvillea in the alleyway areas in those cutouts, and again, you can see those cutouts on the landscape plan. Another comment was relative to the mechanical equipment and making sure that it was adequately screened. In particular, there is what's called a makeup air unit here adjacent to the cafe lounge area. While they are showing in the 3D rendering that there will be a screen wall around that, it wasn't clear on the plans that that equipment would be screened. And I believe that there's also some AC units just immediately behind the trash enclosure, which would also need screening. And so as a condition of approval, I'm proposing that all mechanical equipment be screened in accordance with our code requirements, and so I've included that. We also had a discussion about the trash enclosure. It was noted that there is a private easement in that area where the trash enclosure is located, and the concerns about whether or not it could be built in that area. The applicant has verified that the easement is for the overhead utilities only, and so it would be possible to locate the trash enclosure in that location, and so that will not need to be moved from that location. There was also discussion relative to the fascia details of the new buildings, in particular the bar and lobby building that is new. They have reduced that fascia along the front. In the upper drawing, you can see there it's 2 feet. That will be reduced down to 18 inches, and so that brings it more in line with the existing fascias on the building. So going back, relative to the revised drawings, we have 4 conditions that we're proposing as staff, recommending approval to you. One is relative to the landscape buffer, again, making sure that it has a minimum 2 feet of depth. Secondly, relative to equipment screening, all mechanical equipment will be required to be screened in accordance with code requirements. Exterior lighting will require full cutoff luminaires, and again, we'll review their photometric plan at the permitting stage to make sure that it conforms to our code requirements. And then finally, relative to the exterior paint colors, we recommend approval of the revised paint color scheme, but we do need elevations showing how those 3 different colors will be used on the elevations. With that, that concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have, and then the applicant is also here to discuss the changes to their project.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee of the staff?
Flynn, I have one question. Do we know what type of paver material is proposed?
We don't have a sample of that. I've asked the applicant to discuss that.
Thank you.
Flynn, I have I'm sorry, John, go ahead. A question, it's really more of a comment. Flynn and I had discussed this. In the packet, they're showing an artist billboard, which I don't think we saw before. And I want everybody to understand that that is on the interior of the project. We only are commenting on things that are seen from the public right away. So I think we'll have some questions for the applicant about exactly the size and where that is. But a lot of the other things that are occurring within the courtyard aren't really part of our review.
And I will just say, relative to that proposed billboard, it would not be allowed to be used for signage, as it would exceed our sign code requirements. If it is visible from the right-of-way, and it's uncertain that it is, it may require that they obtain approval of a mural through our Public Arts Committee, but we will review that at a later point in time.
Thank you. John?
Flynn, I had a question on the alley and the planting pockets. That would be via a minor encroachment permit or something? Did they work something out?
I believe, yes, that would be the case, that they would have to do some type of an encroachment permit with engineering in order to maintain those materials.
And the owner would be responsible for maintenance,
Correct.
et cetera? Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
No other question. Is the applicant present? Come up and give us your name, please, and address.
Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Rogers, representing the project 2345 Camino Paracela. The first thing I'm going to pass around the makeup air unit specs. It was obviously makeup air units are, in my experience, very large units, and so that was a concern of ours, is how's it going to look on this very shallow roof. And so what we did is we found a makeup air unit that is much more compact and smaller. It's actually an older unit. It's been around for a while, but these are the specs of the unit. So that unit is what's going to be located on the side of the building where you see kind of the box that Flynn had showed the rendering for. I will talk about the paint colors now. Can I have the microphone? Thank you. Okay, here. So the middle paint color, this is going to be the base color that is going to be used through most of the building. So it's going to be this color here, this color, and this color. So as you can see, the white vinyl looks much better than what the paint swatch originally shown. These other two colors will be accent colors that we'll be using as well. Any questions on paint colors here?
I do have one question. I know the vinyl windows exist. Is it, excuse me, is it true that on the old lobby, the windows that are there with the wooden frames, will those stay as wooden frames that are painted?
They will. It's metal frames, right? Or is it wood? They'll stay as wood frames, and they'll stay as dark colored.
Dark colored?
Yes.
Thank you.
To give you a sense of the size of windows that are being switched out, let's see, page 9 shows you a good reference of the old windows compared to the new windows. And then if there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Does the committee have any questions of the applicant? I have a few. John?
I have one
Okay.
question regarding the trash area. In your rendering, it showed the trash can actually protruding above the walls and gate. What is your height, and what is that true to what you're
It'll
expecting,
be
or-
completely enclosed, yes.
and it will be covered for full protection of access from outside people trying to rummage through things? And
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question on the new one-story roof on top of the new lobby area. How is the drainage accomplished on that roof?
I'll have the architect up for that.
Okay, well, before we get to there, then let me just ask another question
course.
of you. Tell us about this billboard, the rotating or artist changing, and can you show us on the site plan where those would be located?
Yes, I will show you on the site plan where it's located. Maybe I can have the owner come up and talk a little bit about the details and the whereabouts of it. Thanks. Okay, so this is walking through the main entrance of the building. So when you walk through the main entrance of the building, there's going to be a stairs that's taking you to the second level. And what this is doing is it's in front of those stairs. Flynn, could you go to a site plan? Yeah, this is fine. So you're going to walk through this, the entrance right here, and this billboard is going to be right in front of those stairs.
So I'm going to call it legs that you're showing that the billboard's mounted to. Are those new or are those existing?
Those would be new.
And are you going to put the same thing on the other stairway or just this one?
Just this one we have plans for.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
Maybe just a clarification. When looking at the site plan here or the landscape plan, it does show pavers both in the rear parking lot as well as in the front bay parking as well. Is that the intention of the plan?
One second here. That is not correctly conveyed on the plans then. We will not plan to put pavers in the parking lot.
Thank you.
On your landscape plan, all of the, I think all of the trees are called out as single trunk versus multi-trunk. Is that your intention, to just have the single trunk trees?
Let me call the landscape architects up for that.
While you do that, I'm anxious to hear from the landscape architect, maybe hear about some of these changes you made since the prior plan. Maybe he can present some, because I know there were quite a few comments about the landscape screening of the spa and some of the pool spa equipment, some of the screening from the street, the spa area.
Opus or Chris, could I have you up?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Armando Opus Garza. Address is 82415 Oleander Avenue, Indio, California. So the changes, a lot of the trees were upsized from 24-inch box to 36-inch box. The single trunk is the look that we're going for, mainly because some of the areas that we have the trees in is a lot of the parking lot areas, and so we want to keep the canopies up. Some of the screenings that were changed was really just to how the wall changed from, if I can get, so in this area where the cutouts were, we added more. It was fattened up a little bit, so we added some more in front to get a hierarchy, planting straight going from the front with smaller plants a little bit higher towards the back, and then vines on the back, and then a ficus hedge on the actual property site on the other side of the wall. Those were the main changes that happened.
And you're adding on the alley side and the south side, you're calling out now bougainvillea on the side of the building.
Correct.
And Mr. Dosey, I question, does bougainvillea grow out so fat that it's going to be hanging over the alley? Is there a plant material that might be more appropriate there?
The bougainvillea, to get it to actually to a point where it wants to bloom, needs to spread wider like that. So I'm not sure what the setback was with engineering, how far they're allowed to have it in width go out, but it's gonna need at least 2 to 3 feet to really, and there are other vines that could stay tighter to the wall.
Well, that's kind of where I was going. Maybe you could rethink that particular, I love the color of the bougainvillea and the depth that it gives, but it might just be problematic.
We can definitely change that. The year-round color on the bougainvillea was the main, and the thickness of it is something that we can cover that most effectively.
And
with.
maybe that's what you use on the south-facing wall, and then on the alley, something that could be thinner. They don't have to be the same material.
Correct.
We have Rick Minharis from engineering. In terms of the alley and the amount that the landscaping can encroach,
Yeah, so when we looked at this, excuse me, because you have air conditioning units that are protruding out from the side of the building, and you also have a roof overhang, it's already encroaching into the into the alleyway or the right-of-way of the city. So as long as we're not encroaching any further than the existing power poles that are out there, you can see they're about a foot or so off. As long as that planter box doesn't encroach any further than that, and as part of the planter box, when they're putting that in, they'll put a deep root barrier so that it doesn't, there's no upheaval of the asphalt or anything. We'd be perfectly fine with that.
Great, thank you.
I just have one question. Is it possible along Via Olivera that you could introduce some of the triangular planter cutouts similar to what you have in the rear parking lot? Because we've got a nice density of trees in the rear parking lot, but, and I also noticed the other areas that were striped on the previous plan have now been turned into landscape areas, which I think helps. But if we could get even just 2 of those along Via Olivera and that bay parking, I think that would help soften that side of the building.
I believe we have room for it, just not as close. I have to stay away from the alley just because of the telephone poles, but we do have right there, yes, we do have room there.
Flynn, I have a question. We've seen other projects where the parking bays project slightly off of the property into the right-of-way. This is deceiving because when you're out there, the parking bay is quite deep because there is a big distance between the edge of the street and the edge of their parking. Is that something that's...
yes, that is something that city staff reviews and makes sure that they have adequate room for the parking spaces on private property.
So that they would not be able to encroach onto the
Correct.
right-of-way? Okay, so that's just grandfathered in from previous instances?
Correct.
Thank you. Any other landscape questions?
No questions?
I have an architect question.
I'm Mark Nelson, 416 Turno Lane, Palm Springs. I'm the architect on the project.
Mark, my question was the roof drainage on the new addition. How are you going to accomplish that?
It's going to be flat with slight slopes to area drains.
So you will have roof drains. It won't overflow the parapet?
No.
Great, thank you. Okay, if we have no more questions for the applicant, are there any public comments from the audience? Seeing none, I think our committee can discuss this project. John Walsh? No? John McCoy?
Nothing at the moment.
Steve?
Nope, I'm good.
Tom Dosey?
No questions?
Wow, Sean, you got to ask
It's
questions
comment
for
time.
everybody.
Comments?
No comment.
Okay, Robert?
No.
Well, I think it shows you've done a good job listening to us from our comments last time. Thank you very much, and I think it's going to be a nice project. It looks very good. Your revisions have improved it, and thank you very much for doing that. So do we have a motion?
I move to approve, and including the staff comments.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. So we have no new business. Are there any committee member comments?
I would like to restate where, earlier, where I said that I misread.
Oh.
In number 4, the Pinnacle Palm Springs, I abstained, and it says that I voted aye. So if we can just make that correction in the, yes. Thought I saw that. Okay, thanks. We'll go ahead and make that correction.
No committee comments, any staff? Oh, I'm sorry, Robert?
Do we need to reapprove it then?
No, we'll go ahead and make that as it's factually incorrect.
Thank you. Any staff member comments?
Yes, I do have a couple of things. First, I'd like to introduce Mr. Ivan Flores. Ivan is a new assistant planner who just started today at the City of Palm Springs.
Welcome.
This is an additional staff position. We're happy to have him here. And Ms. Noriko Kikuchi is being his trainer today, so we appreciate Noriko doing that as well. So again, welcome to Ivan. And he will appear before you here in the near future, I'm sure. Secondly, the Planning Commission has put together a subcommittee to look at our submittal requirements. They're interested in having accurate submittals coming before the AAC and the Planning Commission, and they have requested one individual, Mr. Chair, to serve on that subcommittee.
And I believe there's going to be 3 members from the Planning Commission.
3 members of the
and
Planning Commission and 1 member of the AAC.
I think we all probably have ideas and thoughts about the submittal requirements. Is there anybody who would like to volunteer to be on that subcommittee?
I don't know that I understood the subcommittee, sorry.
It's a Planning Commission subcommittee to discuss the submittal requirements for the various application types that we take in the planning department.
Mm-hmm.
All applications or just?
Pretty much all applications, anything that comes before AAC and Planning Commission.
Okay, so, all right.
So does that mean talking about the size and color and
Exactly.
scale drawings?
And what type of information is submitted for each application type?
Is it an email subcommittee or is
No, it's an in-person subcommittee. So it will require a certain commitment of time. I would imagine that it will probably take about 3 to 4 meetings of the subcommittee to come up with final recommendations.
Can I ask a question that is attached to this? Have the applications been inconsistent or unclear because it seems pretty detailed and articulate in terms of what's
I
required?
can answer that.
I was going to say something very measured, but if you want to go ahead and speak freely, Mr. Lockyer.
Well, it's been my experience that there's a great imbalance. Sometimes they're often very incomplete, and I know that staff struggles greatly to get them up to a certain standard. I know they struggle at times, and then we see them after that great struggle, and to get them up to a certain standard. Sometimes they're good, and I know I myself at times complain that they're still substandard. That's my own experience.
And one of the frequent frustrations that we hear is that landscape plans in particular have symbols and details that make it difficult to read. So the idea is that we would standardize the submittal requirements for things such as that. So that is where this is coming from.
Well, if there's no volunteers, I wouldn't mind being on that committee, but I would ask everybody on our committee to please email me suggestions or thoughts that you have so that I can kind of be the email portion, and then I'll do the sitting in the meeting. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. The last thing I have, I can't remember if I emailed out to all of you a notice about the Historic Site Preservation Board Symposium on, okay, so I did send something out to you. Okay.
It's in next week or 15th,
It's on
14th,
April
and 15th.
14th and 15th. They're doing 2 days this year. Typically, we just do 1 day on Sunday, but they're doing a workshop on Monday, which will be held at the bank. And so we're excited to have that location as part of our workshops that we're offering this year. So again, please sign up for those. The attendance is filling up quickly, and I think probably half the tours are already sold out. So if you haven't signed up for that, please do. And that's everything.
So
Mr.
about
Robin?
the tours, they usually, last year, they have a series of tours you can select at the end of that day. There's, and when you go to try and sign up for something, you kind of get into this rat wheel that there's no place to click to sign up for something.
Oh, I can help you with that.
Thank you.
I can help you with that, so be happy to do that. And that's everything I have for you all. Thanks.
Nothing else, then I think we're adjourned till our next meeting of April 15th.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.